what happens is you get what's called a controlled fall when you play baseball, especially young kids. We bring them up here, and then all of a sudden as they play baseball, their strength and power starts to deteriorate. The summer comes, they're playing multiple games, multiple tournaments in the heat, driving, staying in hotels, eating bad food, and it just continues to fall. And then what happens is it takes us 3/4 of the next off season to get them where they were a year ago at the end of the off season.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Clearing the Bases, the podcast where we step up to the plate and dive deep into the world of youth baseball. I'm your host, Jimmy Filangieri. On this show, we discuss all things related to the preparation and development of youth baseball players, coaches, and yes, even parents. So sit back, settle in, and get ready to hear from some of the greatest baseball minds out there.
He is a strength and conditioning coach. He's the strength and conditioning coach at TCU. He said when the guys get there, what he tells them is he gives them a TCU water bottle, and it's like a half gallon. And he said, during baseball season, this is your girlfriend. He said, take this, fill it up, take it everywhere with you. Take it to class. I don't care if you have to take it to the bathroom, but you need to get, 90 to 100 ounces of water in your body every day when you're playing baseball, especially down there in Texas.
Sure.
But hydration is key. It's not only key for cellular growth. Water changes the body at a cellular level. The mitochondria in your muscles, your ability to burn body fat, your ability to keep your body temperature lower.
To be able to reach the highest levels of this game, you got to work hard. You got to get in the cages. You got to do your strength and conditioning. You got to throw your bullpens. There's all of this physical stuff that you need to do, and you need to work hard at it. But don't forget that you also have to get better at the mental side of the game. And one of the ways you can do that is increase baseball IQ by downloading and using the 6-Tool app.
For baseball coaches like you, every game brings measurable progress. However, game time isn't the time for trial and error learning. Instead, have a proactive approach. Use 6-Tool, the best baseball player development tool on the market. We provide a platform to level up your coaching strategy by helping you to quickly identify and address your players' knowledge of the game. By using our easy-to-implement interactive player quizzes, you can assess position-specific issues, overall baseball IQ, and much more. Win more games and develop better overall baseball players with effective off-the-field training. Visit us at 6-tool.com. 6-Tool. Get ahead in the game.
Okay, everybody. Put on your running shoes, grab your water, and get ready to work out with a very special guest tonight. We're going to get outside of our wheelhouse a little bit today, and I'm excited to do this because I really think that there's going to be a lot of information that people are going to be able to use. So our guest tonight is Nunzio Signore. He is the owner and operator of Rockland Peak Performance, based in Sloatsburg, New York, which is kind of in my backyard here. It's not that far from me, where hundreds of pitchers and baseball players train annually. He is the author of the book, Pitcher's Arm Care, co-director of the Pitching Lab, and a writer and lecturer. He was one of the great speakers at this year's ABCA convention in Washington, D.C., and it's an honor for me to have him on the show. Welcome to the show, Nunzio.
Thank you so much, Jimmy, for having me.
Oh, this is going to be great. This is, like I said, this is something that's kind of out of our wheelhouse, but I think it's really important stuff because it's all of the things that I know personally I deal with as a coach, and I think that you're going to be able to shine some light on some of the things that, I find, I find myself scratching to try and get information.
I'm I'm ready here. I'm willing, ready to go, and ready to answer anything that you might actually have to ask me. And I'm going to do my best to provide everybody with the best information that I can.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So let's start at the beginning here. What inspired you? What made you start Rockland Peak Performance, and how has it evolved over the years?
Okay, so I started Rockland Peak Performance in 2010. When I first started it, because my background is in kinesiology and movement, and I was a soccer player in school, so I really was open to Rockland Peak Performance to train all types of athletes. Wasn't it really wasn't a focus of baseball per se. Originally, just baseball. I had ice hockey players. I had baseball players. I had girl softball players. I had volleyball players. And it wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 years in, about 2013, a man walked in who now is my partner. A man walked in with a son who played at Don Bosco Prep, and he was a pitcher. And he had heard that I was training athletes, and he wanted to know why he should train at my place. What makes me different? I said, I'll tell you what. I'll put your son on the table, and I'll assess him, and I'll tell you exactly what I think and what I'm doing as I'm doing it. And at the end, you can make the decision of what you want. So I assessed his son, and halfway through the assessment, he just started walking around. He wasn't even watching it anymore. I thought maybe, he was done. He didn't want to do it. And then when he came back, he told me that, he had already bought a package while I was assessing his son because he said it was such an intense assessment. And it's a big part of my business is assessing athletes. But then he asked me about 6 months later if I ever thought of opening a couple of these or expanding this, and if I ever thought of just doing baseball. And I was thinking to myself, well, wow, what happens when baseball seasons goes into season? What happens to my business? And he's a really he's a smart guy. He's a great partner. His name's Bahram Shirazi, and we worked it out. He said, you need to get tunnels in here. If you want baseball players, you need pitching tunnels. So what started out as a strength and conditioning place ended up becoming pitching tunnels and strength and conditioning. And he said, you need the tunnels as honey. The kids will come in to pitch, and then that's the way you're going to get them to lift. Because 12, 14, 15 years ago when I opened, young baseball players were not lifting as much as they're lifting now. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit. But it became bigger and bigger, and then I outgrew that facility, and we moved to Paramus in North Bergen, where most of my athletes were driving from Paramus to Sloatsburg anyway. And then when I moved to Paramus, the business exploded because I immersed myself in all those little communities off of 208, 80, 17, 4. It was just a great location. It still is. And I've been training only baseball players ever since.
That's pretty interesting. Wow, so you went from soccer to baseball. You wouldn't think that would be like a natural progression, so it kind of fell into your lap, right?
And because I studied movement, and then I went and I took extra classes and studied biomechanics, and I played baseball until I was about 15 years old, and then I didn't play anymore. So I haven't played baseball since I'm 15. But what I do, I have pitching coaches to teach pitchers how to pitch. I have hitting coaches to teach them how to hit. When we want to get them strong and we want to keep them healthy and we want to optimize performance, that's what I do.
Yeah.
So that I always tell people, when I first opened, all the baseball places around me were like, what are you going to that guy for? He didn't even play baseball. He's a soccer player. Well, I am, but I have pitching and hitting coaches who teach baseball. I teach them how to get strong, grow, and stay healthy.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's face it. And, I tip my hat to what you just said about bringing in pitching guys and bringing in hitting guys, because I would venture to say that most of these facilities, they probably have, yes, they're baseball guys, but they might be teaching pitching, they might be teaching hitting, they might be teaching infield play, outfield play. Whereas I think what you're doing is you're bringing in guys who know that particular part of the game, and that's what they're teaching, which is awesome.
And it's really important because I'm going to tell you, this was something I think I mentioned at ABCA. While I love my pitching coaches and while I love my hitting coaches, and my hitting coach is such a great. We have two travel teams called the Revolution. His name is Andrew Pizzuto. He's my hitting coach and he's also the coach of the teams. And he's such a great baseball coach and so much experience in college. But what I tell people all the time is, even if I have the greatest pitching coaches and if I have the greatest hitting coaches, if I can't deliver those guys an athlete who moves well, they're only going to get so far with that guy. It's like trying to pound a square peg into a round hole. So getting these guys really athletic lets my guys do their job all the more better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Matter of fact, I just had that very similar conversation today with my JV coach, telling him that, at the high school level, especially at the freshman and sophomore years, I believe that you have to keep our instruction very, very basic because, again, like what you just said, these players don't know how to move yet. They're still babies. Let's face it, 14 years old, 15 years old. They're still very young, and we have to teach them the rudimentary parts of, we'll say, hitting. That's what we were talking about before we start moving on to other things. So, yeah, I agree, with everything that you just said. You need that coach. And I'm going to jump into something else that you had just said that's kind of interesting. You mentioned that you have a couple of is it 2 travel teams or is it more than that?
I have 2 travel teams. We have a 13, 14, and a 15. So 13, 14 mix kind of and a 15U.
Okay. And that's interesting because you the way you explained it, I took it as that you kind of fell into that it was not necessarily something that you wanted to do. Is that correct?
It was actually something that we said we would never do. And if you have a minute, I'll tell you how that transpired.
Yeah.
We've always trained athletes from 13 years old up to pro baseball players. We never wanted to get into the team business because my partner had mentioned once you get into the team business and you have teams training there, if you lose that team, you lose a lot of business at one time. And also, you have to deal with, and you probably can understand this, but you have to deal with a lot of parents.
Yeah.
Why isn't my son playing?
Yeah.
Why isn't he? When are we going to do this? What is it? So we didn't want to open up that can of worms. But what happened about 3 years ago was we saw a pattern happening. We would have 13, 14, 15-year-old kids, and they would come into our facility, and they would train in the off season. And they would gain great weight, and their velocity would go up, and they're feeling really athletic. And then winter practices start with tournament ball, okay? And these 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids, they are more or less forced to work out strength-wise with their team. And these strength training programs, not all, but very many of them are garbage because the coach is throwing together a bunch of dumbbells in a room, and he's calling it a strength program. Doesn't really have the experience of teaching or the knowledge of the art, and it's a money grab because it's extra money. So what happens is I was losing my 13, 14, and 15-year-old kids in January, okay? And they would go out and they would play in January, February, March. Then they would play summer ball tournaments. And I wouldn't see them because they're with the team. They would come back in September, and their arm is hanging.
Yeah.
And they've lost all their weight. They look exactly like they looked before they started training in the fall.
Yeah.
They lost all that work. And what happens is you get what's called a controlled fall when you play baseball, especially young kids. We bring them up here, and then all of a sudden as they play baseball, their strength and power starts to deteriorate. The summer comes. They're playing multiple games, multiple tournaments in the heat, driving, staying in hotels, eating bad food, and it just continues to fall. And then what happens is it takes us 3/4 of the next offseason to get them where they were a year ago at the end of the offseason. Instead, they should be training 1 to 2 days a week with us, maintaining that strength they got, and then keep playing travel ball. And then we get them from there. And it's a stepwise pattern. And we were like, you know what? We are actually doing these kids a disservice. We should put together, because people had asked us all the time, you should put together teams. You got great athletes. So we said, you know what? We're going to put together a 13U team. The next year we'll have them go up. We'll put together another one. We'll have them go to 16. Then we'll have 3, and we'll keep doing that. And that way we can control. They'll be doing our strength training. They'll be doing our speed classes. And I'll tell you, we had our first scrimmage with each other last Saturday, and it's exactly a year ago from the first team we had. Now this team is a year older. When I tell you, I can't believe the size difference of these kids and how much better they're playing because of the strength and conditioning and the speed work that we did and the hitting and pitching. Just an all-around inclusive, thorough training program. And I can see that they're going to be much bigger and athletic than the kids are going to play this year. Yeah. So we're trying to build it right now to get a grassroots program going, because with the portal, and we could talk about that later, with the portal, when these kids get to 16, 17 years old, they're competing against, men. Sophomores and juniors in college.
Yeah, men.
And they need to be big.
Yeah. I mean, I was sitting here listening to what you just said, and I actually am following exactly what you did for this, very similar reasons, because I always said I would never, ever get involved in travel. I don't want to be involved. I mean, I used to coach it, but for somebody else. I didn't want something that I was actually going to run. So, but to your point, okay, what I've seen is happening is guys are going with their travel teams, January, February, December, whatever they are. I don't know what they're doing. They're throwing when they shouldn't be throwing. They're not even being ramped up correctly. And then I have to get them, and I have to try and, like you said, I have to try and piece it together. Where,
they come back like Humpty Dumpty.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're broken.
It's insane. I had a picture in the beginning of this year, January, and he's throwing bullpens in January. And I see it on social media. So I went over to him and I said, "What are you doing?" So he says, "Well, Coach, I got to get ready for a showcase." So I said, "Really?" I said, "When's the showcase?" "February." I said, "Okay." I said, "And what do you got to go to this showcase for?" He said, "Well, Coach, I got to get seen by colleges." So I said, "Listen," I said, "you want to get seen by a college, you figure out what school you want to go to, let me know, I'll reach out to the coach, and that's the end of the story. You don't need to go to this showcase." I said, "Not only that," I said, "it's beginning of February, okay? You're throwing full bullpens now. What am I supposed to do with you when I get you now? What am I going to deload you and then try and ramp you back up before the season starts?" So I said, "That's it. I'm going to start taking all of the players, as many as I can. I don't care where they come from. Other high schools, my high school, I don't care. And start working with the boys and training them the right way."
We tell people all the time, listen, we're at the point now where we're kind of fed up with it. It's really hard with trying to start a 13-year team, because this is the first year that they actually, and they want to be with their friends that they were playing rec ball with, town ball with. You know what I mean? Yeah. So they find out where everybody goes, and the more experienced teams that have been doing it for a long time, they're just corralling them in like cattle.
Right.
And it's really, and not to mention what you're saying, these kids going to these showcases in February, and many of them are throwing 78 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. And I'm like, listen, you know what you're doing? You're showcasing yourself off the list.
Yeah. You're exposing yourself. That's what you're doing. So, we're on the same page, and I wish you all the luck with that, because it sounds like you have the right people in place to do what's right. And I hope that I could get the people with me that we could make it happen, because I'm sick and tired of seeing these kids with arm injuries. I just and actually I'm going to get into that, because but I'll just tell you the story, and then it'll take us into what I want to get into next. 14-year-old kid, freshman, comes to me and says his arm's hurting, his elbow, right? So I'm not a doctor. I said, "Go get it checked out, see what's going on." So apparently there is a nerve, and I'm sure you would know this, a nerve that runs down your elbow that kind of came out of the slot it's supposed to be in.
You're the ulnar nerve.
Yes. Okay.
It
Yes.
came out of the bicipital groove, and it goes back and forth, and he gets tingling in his third and fourth finger.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So he ran into this. So now they did an MRI today to see if they have to do anything to the UCL, because they said, let's check that. And if we have to do something, we might as well do it while we're in there fixing the nerve. But, Nunzio, what do we have to do other than beat people over the head to prevent these injuries in these young kids?
You got to be a black sheep. You got to be a black sheep, and you got to stick to your guns, and you got to not be afraid to tell people maybe this just isn't the right place for you, because the fathers come in, guns cocked, ready to fucking go. You know what I mean? Excuse my language.
No,
ready to go, and I want you to train my son like a pro. I'm not going to train your son like a pro. He's not a pro, but I will train your son like a pro ball player trained when he was his age. That's what I'll do. But these guys, they're everybody's son is Derek Jeter, and I get it. It's your son. You want to give him confidence, and you feel confident, and it's a reflection of you, and it's great. But I've been training hundreds of 13 to 20-year-old kids for the last 15, 16 years. I can watch them when they come in the door. I can tell you what the scenario is going to be before the father even opens his mouth.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's either a great, and there are some people who just leave. We tell them, your son's not going to train on his own. He can't train on his own yet. He doesn't move correctly. They want their kids to play. They want their kids to train in the big weight room, and they're 15 years old. And how many years has he been lifting? About 6 months to a year. First of all, he's probably lying a little bit, but he's not ready to lift on his own. We're not going to be responsible for that.
Yeah.
And we're not going to overthrow your son. We're not going to overthrow your kid. And we keep tabs on what our kids are doing. And the ones that used to go and play travel ball and live with the team, they would come back and still try to train with us a third day. And they come into the weight room and they can't deadlift because their back hurts. They can't do this because their arm hurts. And I'm like, you know what? You're breaking yourself, and then we're not able to do what we can do. So we're not interested in anybody who doesn't want to train with us year-round anymore. So if you don't want to train with us year-round, we are definitely not the place for you.
Right. So talk to us a little bit about the book.
I have two books. The one you're talking about is Pitcher's Arm Care.
Yes. Okay,
because the other book I have is on velocity-based training, and that's not for this podcast.
Yeah.
But Pitcher's Arm Care was a book I wrote. It was based off of, once again, my partner saying to me, all these pre-throw programs and post-throw that I give my guys, and all the mobility work and shoulder arm care. He was saying, you should put together a book that's understandable to pitching coaches and young team players and guys that coach young kids like yourself.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I mean, it's all written. I've written the articles. I have the stuff. And we just really put it together, and it was really designed for coaches to be able to take it and kind of use it as a year-round manual for what you do with a kid. What do we do with a kid in the off season when he's not throwing yet? What do we do with a kid when he starts to ramp up? What do we do with a kid when he starts travel ball? What do we do in the summer after he's already been pitching for 4 months? And I take it through the different times of the year. And I show mobility, I show exercises, and then I'm always big into, once I show you an exercise, I got to tell you the why. It's much better for a coach to not just copy something. It's better for them to understand why are they doing this drill, because it will make them a better coach and make them coach the drill better.
Absolutely.
So it's really, we used it as a manual for young baseball coaches of young baseball teams to use it. And high schools, we had it ordered by high schools. We had some colleges that even ordered it. Yeah. But it was designed for a kind of soup to nuts ballpark, because arm care is so individual. Every kid has a different issue. Something might be might be the UCL. Something is the epicondyle, the elbow. Some of it is the shoulder. Some of it is lower back pain. Some of it is, it's a lot of different things. So biceps pain. So you can't say this is a program for everyone. But what I tried to do was I tried to find the outlying exercises that can be done by everyone, that all kids need, like internal and external rotation and things that stabilize the scapula, and working on the forearm strength. These are things that, most kids need.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's great because I could tell you this, that you're going to sell one more book because I'm going to buy it. I want to read it because these are things that, again, drives me crazy. It breaks my heart when I see young kids with arm problems. And I know the reason is because 9 out of 10 times they were abused when they were 9, 10, 11, 12, when they were coming up, guys throwing them, not paying attention to pitch counts, throwing them, too many days in a row. So I want to take a look at your book because maybe there's stuff in there that's going to help me to better help my players.
Absolutely, and that's really forward thinking of you. I also want to say that the young kids, I mean, we're seeing kids getting Tommy John at 16 and 17 years old. It's crazy. And those are usually the kids who threw hard at an early age, and the coach wants to win. So he puts them in the throw, and then on the days when he's not throwing and they're ahead and doesn't want to give up any more runs, puts them in again. Now you got a kid who pitched Saturday, and now he's pitching Sunday.
Yeah.
That's just no good.
Yeah.
That's no good.
And I mean, let's face it, I've had parents, when I was coaching travel ball, parents come up to me and let's say I threw a kid Friday, whatever, and we make it and we're going into the semifinals. And the parent will come up to me and say, "Hey, you're going to pitch my kid today?" And I was like, "No, he pitched Friday." He's like, no, come on, you could pitch my son. He's got a rubber arm. And I would look at the parent. I would say, "Listen to me. He is not pitching today. He's lucky if I put him in the game today." I said, he threw Friday. Done. He did his job.
Yeah, you got to kind of figure out, what you're going to do and have a guy ready, But it's tough because you know what? We got to win one game at a time, right?
Right.
So we try to get our guy in that gives us the best opportunity to proceed to the next day.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important to have, a stacked staff a little bit, because you can't. Once you get that guy to the next day, he's done.
But he
needs 3 days before he pitches again.
Right. But my problem is this. Okay, what I see happen. Let's say you have a team and they have, they have 3 horses. Okay, so they have 3 guys they can count on that are really good pitchers, and they have 3 or 4 other guys that can pitch, but maybe they're not as good as them. Well, instead of destroying those first 3 guys' arm, why don't we use the other guys so that we rest the other guy's arm, and at the same time we're developing those other guys as pitchers so that maybe they can get better. Okay?
Exactly.
And again, people don't understand that. If you lose some tournament game that you're playing somewhere, who cares? Right? Who cares?
Right.
But if that kid's got to get Tommy John surgery, that's a travesty.
You also maybe want to, have him throw half the amount of pitches, and maybe you can use him twice. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, like right now, and I've seen this, I just saw it the other day in a scrimmage that we were playing. This time of year, and this is varsity high school baseball, my pitchers in my scrimmages are throwing 30 pitches, 35 pitches. That's it.
Right.
And then
Very good.
I pull them out, and that's it. Next guy goes in. We had our first game yesterday. The most that anybody threw was, I think it was 50, right around 50 pitches. Okay?
Right.
Everybody else was under that. All right. Now, do I want to win the game? Of course I do. I'm doing everything I can to win the game. But again, like I said before, not at the expense of tearing that kid's arm up. We have to be ready for the end of the season to be able to compete. Like
you said, it's important to get guys who can throw low number of innings that maybe play another position, because when they're young like that, because it's really, really, it's important. Because if you want to build teams, kids want to be on teams that win.
Yes.
And you got to kind of straddle the fence of winning and hurting kids. and it's a fine line. So
Yeah.
we we really uh, getting your kids strong and is making them durable.
Yeah.
And that's really young kids get hurt because they don't have enough weight, muscle weight on their body to disperse the stress of throwing. When that front foot hits the mound, when that front foot hits blocks to swing a baseball bat, that jolts a kid. And when they're like Gumby, a lot of these kids. And when when you jolt a kid down below, that's reverberating through his entire chain, and it's shaking the arm as he throws. And now he's throwing out of position, and that's where that's where a lot of problems happen.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, I feel that, we don't need to go undefeated to win a state championship, if that ever, came about for me.
1000%.
We don't have to. So in the beginning of the
1000.
season, let's do what we can, like you said, to make the guys stronger so that when it does matter, now we can pitch them 80 pitches, 85 pitches, and they've already been built up to that strength.
The the thing that's going to make your son or daughter, the thing that's going to make your kid a better baseball player from the age of 12, 13 years old to the age of 16, 17 is strength training. Because if you look at the difference between a Division One, who these kids all have their heart set on playing baseball in college. If you look at the difference between a Division One college athlete, the size of a Division One college athlete, and you look at the size of a 13-year-old kid, there's 5 years there, okay? And there is an enormous difference in size, weight, and strength.
Yeah.
Okay? When you get to Division One baseball and you look at the difference between a Division One baseball player and a professional baseball player, there is no difference in size and strength.
Yes.
Okay? That at that point you have to worry about baseball, 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 because the technical ability matters once you get to college. If you want to get to pro ball, but if you want to get to college, you're not even going to get to college if your size and strength is so much. When parents argue with me about having their sons eat real clean and a lot of calories and lift and gain some weight, I finally tell them, look, Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, I can just tell you, I sent a lot of kids to school to get their college paid for. None of them are 150 pounds.
Right.
None of them.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true. So, I mean, you know what? Talk to us a little bit about what you just mentioned. Let's talk about nutrition a little bit. So, again, you have these young guys that are small. They need to put weight on. They need to get bigger, faster, and stronger. How do they, how do you assign their diet to them so that they put this weight on?
Okay, so just for your listeners to just get a little bit of a gauge on how in the ballpark maybe their son or daughter is, especially this mostly pertains, I'm sorry, but mostly pertains to boys. The number one factor I've seen over the years with young athletes, as far as all metrics, including speed, are concerned, is nutrition and their height to weight ratio. So for 12 to 15-year-old boys, okay, we look for their weight to be 2 to 2.5 times their height in inches. So if you have a kid who's 5'4", that's 64 inches, okay? So we're looking for him to be 2 to 2.5 times his height in inches. This is about 130 pounds to 160 pounds, okay? And it's also at less than 15% body fat. You can't just be 160 pounds and have no muscle on your body. Yeah. That's not going to work out well for you either. For 16-plus kids, we look for them to be 2.5 to 2.8. So you have a kid who's 5'9", 5'10", let's say 5'8". He's 68 inches. We're looking for that kid to be about 170 to 190 pounds at less than 15% body fat. So I have a kid who his father called me yesterday, and he didn't make the baseball team. And we have been telling this family that their son needs to gain weight. He's 5'10", which is 70 inches, and he weighs 145 pounds. Okay? So at 70 inches, this kid needs to be 160. He's 20, 25 pounds underweight
Yeah.
at almost 16 years old,
Yeah.
15, 16 years old. So he parents, if you're trying to gauge it, if you got a kid from 12 to 15 years old, really try to get him 2.0 or 2.2 and a half times his height in inches. Okay? Figure out his height in inches and multiply it by 2.5. Okay? This is where you really want him to be, and make sure he doesn't have a lot of baby fat on. Okay? If not, listen, they're 12 and 13, 14 years old. We're not expecting them to look like Adonises.
Right.
You know what I mean? They haven't even hit their growth spurt yet.
Yeah.
Right? That's why the lower ratio. But getting a kid involved at 13, 14, and 15 in strength training, they're drinking up strength like a sponge,
Sure.
especially as those hormones start to change. And I watch them. They just kids will grow 10 inches in a year.
Oh, yeah.
It's like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Yeah, I see.
so the nutrition thing is huge
Yeah.
because you got to get the right amount of calories. We refer out to a nutritionist. We do not claim to be dietitians or nutritionists, but we do tell them, we give them a formula to figure out X amount of calories if they don't want to pay the money for a nutritionist. But it always works better when they go see Nick Valenti, who is hit the number 8 well. That's in Long Island, and you can look him up. He will put really great healthy pounds on your kid. He is really, really dedicated to helping each athlete that we send him, and they all have incredible results.
That's fantastic. I mean, it sounds
Because
great.
it's a family affair. Your kid
Sure.
needs to gain weight. A 13-year-old kid's not responsible for cooking. So you guys got to make sure you're cooking the right food. You got to make sure he's eating enough food. Everybody needs to kick in this. You know what I mean? It's the parents' problem, really.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I agree with that 100%. But yeah, that's some good advice. I mean, I love that ratio and the way, people should look at it, because there you go. I mean, it's that simple. It's easy to do. You could figure it out, and you could see if your kid is underweight, and if you need help putting that weight on, go and talk to somebody and get it done. I mean,
Yeah, because there's a specific formula we use. I don't have it on me, but there's a specific. Your son is this height. He gains to gain 25 pounds of lean muscle mass. He needs to eat this many calories. Of these calories, this many needs to be carbs. This many needs to be protein. This much needs to be fat. And we give them an actual sample meal plan. So it's kind of nutrition for dummies,
Yeah.
Unless they want to go to Nick.
well, that's good that it's nutrition for dummies, because that means I can understand it then. So that's great. Okay, so that's great. And you know what? This is something that I wasn't going to go to, but you made me think of it. What about supplements?
Supplements, a good protein supplement, a good whey protein, unless your son or daughter can't metabolize it gives them indigestion. You can use a vegan protein, but really all we really do is, people ask about creatine all the time. Creatine for a 13-year-old, I don't necessarily know that that's necessary, but once the growth spurt starts to happen, 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old, I think creatine is an awesome supplement.
Okay.
And I think it's an awesome supplement for adults as well. I mean, I take creatine, and I'm way past, playing baseball.
Yeah.
So basically, the supplements I look for is a good multivitamin, a protein to add to a really dense shake, and creatine after 15 years old. They're the only supplements I really suggest.
That's great. I mean, it's something that, again, as a baseball coach, I don't know much about that stuff, and I cringe when I hear, like you had just mentioned, creatine. I know a lot of kids use it. I don't know if it's good or bad, but so now you just made me understand it.
There's been so many studies and research on creatine, and sometimes people who don't like supplements try to give it a bad rap. It's actually, if you go look at the recent studies on creatine, how good it is for your system, it's really, I actually not only think there's nothing wrong with it, I highly recommend it to older kids.
Okay. So let's let's change up a little bit here. Well, you know what? The one thing I want to ask, and we kind of went past it, is are there any like red flags that would indicate that a pitcher is at risk for injury, or is it just that they're undersized?
Well, undersize is going to give you is going to cause the problems that you can see. The one thing we see with pitchers, mostly young pitchers, is halfway through the season, if they are not continuing to strength train, or they've never strength trained at all, what ends up happening is their weight will come down, and they'll start to lose their lower half, any strength that they do have in their lower half. And when you start to lose strength with your lower half, your brain will tell your body, I can't hold this position. I can't stay out in front of the ball anymore. Let go of the ball. And as you fatigue quicker, your brain tells you to let go of the ball quicker. So what starts to happen is you'll start to see a kid throw high in arm side. And that's the very, very first clue that you've got a kid who's starting to get tired. And you will see that as early as mid-May.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And they will not, and that you're going to ask them how they feel, and they're never going to tell you that they're tired or their arm hurts.
Yeah.
Okay? So once you start to see that ball release high, the next thing you're going to see is you're going to start to see velo going down. Yeah. And they're either going to start walking guys, or if they do get the ball over the plate, they're going to start getting hit because their velo's down. Yeah. And what happens when their velo goes down? They start to try to get more velo. So if you don't have your lower half, how are you going to get more velo? You're going to throw it with your arm.
Yeah.
And you're going to overuse your arm, and that's what's making kids, the lack of strength makes them lose their lower half. It starts with signaling to let go of the ball early. After that, their lack of power in the lower half doesn't transfer to the upper body. They can't throw as hard anymore. And instead of telling somebody that something's wrong, they just buckle down, grit their teeth, and they just start winging it with their arm. Yeah. And the arm will cry uncle. It's a physical thing. It's bigger than them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a coach, that's always my first sign, always, that a pitcher that I need to, get him out of the game because he starts leaving the ball up. That's number one sign for me. I don't, to tell you the God's honest truth, I don't even really pay attention, or I'm not aware of any drop in velocity. I see him leaving the ball up, I change the pitcher right away. I say,
that's good, because the drop in velocity comes a couple weeks later after he starts throwing up. When he starts throwing high, the next thing he's going to do is he's going to try to get that ball over the plate, and you're going to start to realize that ball is, 84, 85 is now 2-3, 1-2. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
right.
it's very frustrating for a kid. And those kids who didn't train in season, they come running back ready to do it. And it's like, you know what? By the time we get you back to where you were, the season's going to be over. The most important thing I can tell everybody is, once you're training in the off season and baseball season starts, just get in the gym two times a week. You don't have to come to me. You can go to a gym. You need to just these workouts need to be 30, 40 minutes long. They're not even long. Yeah. 2 sets of a hip, a knee, an upper body push, and an upper body pull, and some core. Really quickly, done. Get in and out 2 days a week. One of them can be Sunday when there's one of them can be on a Sunday because you're playing ball on Saturday, and one of them can be during a week after practice.
Yeah. That's again something that I don't do because we don't have the time. But you just actually brought up a good point. Have the boys go to the gym on a Sunday, and then have an early practice, or even cut practice early if I have to by, like you said, a half hour, because an hour and a half practice, if you do it right, can be very beneficial. So cut it
Absolutely.
short. And
one day a week, cut your practice short. If you're making sure that your guys are making it to the gym because you're cutting your practice short, you are really, really helping your team.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I mean, it's something that you just taught me, and I will work to get it done. The next thing that I wanted to go to was what are the biggest? I mean, actually, I shouldn't even ask you this, but I'll go ahead and I'm pretty sure I know what your answer is going to be. What are the biggest mistakes you see young pitchers making in training and development? Is it just the lifting?
Well, you have to look at long-term athletic development. The things that we really need to make sure of is their nutrition, them taking care of their arm care, pre and post warm-ups when they throw, whether it's bullpens or games, strength training, and making sure they're honing in on their mechanics. Okay, so these are the four things you really want to make sure. So, what the mistakes I see them doing, some kids never get on the nutrition train. They just don't gain the weight, and it just doesn't happen for them. Some kids, they do their bullpen, they run out, they don't do their post throw. Bad
Yeah.
move. Some kids come in late from school. They run right into the bullpen. They do a couple quick band drills, and then they run right into the bullpen. So one of them is one of them is nutrition, and they're not really. That's number one. Number two, the arm care. Leaving, not taking care of their post throw, coming in quickly, running right into the bullpen, not taking care of their pre throw. The biggest one I see of all is once baseball season starts, and I understand that there's many reasons why your son all of a sudden can't make it into the facility twice a week because A, dad's working and mom's got two other kids that she's shuttling around, so it might not be convenient for them to do that. The other thing is homework. The other thing is baseball practice with guys who are just having their kids practice too long, and then it gets too late, and they need to eat, and they need to do homework. So that is the reason why I say with a 2-day in-season program, if you can knock a Sunday out, you only need to find 1 day a week. Because of all the things I just mentioned, nutrition, arm care, mechanics, not strength training in the in-season is the one thing that I watch everybody do, and 70% of them come back. And with our guys now, it's getting better and better. Guys are realizing they did it once, and once it happens to them, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
It's really, really important, especially as they get older. They can't afford it at 16 years old to have a bad year where they lose weight and their arm hurts because they're getting recruited at this point.
Sure.
And if they have to sit on the bench or they have to get surgery, and it will happen to you if you let your strength wane.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the biggest one.
And like you said, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, make sure I didn't misinterpret it, but if they're going to do those 2 lifts a week, it's 30, 35 minutes per.
It's an hour and a half a week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
They play an hour and a half a day of baseball. So just an hour and a half a week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you said, I wish everybody thought like you did. If you give your kids one practice that's an hour early, or 2 practices that are 30 minutes shorter, so they can get out of there, you can't imagine how much better it is for your guys. If they're just going to get out of there and go goof around, that's different.
Right.
But you're at least giving them the opportunity to get to the gym and get to my place by 5:30 and get picked up by 6:15 and be home by 7 o'clock to eat and do homework.
Yeah. And I mean, in our case, it's very, very simple. We're practicing at the school, and I don't know, 200 feet away, you walk right into the weight room, and it's right there. I mean, it's right there.
It's the number one thing. All the guys that I've ever seen in my facility who come through from 13, 14, and 15 years old, who go on to play Division I and some pro ball, all those guys understood by the age of 14 that we're going to lift in the off season. We're going to come 2 times a week in the spring, but we're going to come 2 times a week in the summer, and then we're going to come 3 times a week again in the fall and winter, and it's going to start all over again.
Right.
3 times a week in the fall and winter, 2 times a week in the spring, 2 times a week in the summer, year round.
Yeah, I mean, I would even venture to say that because we can't go 7 days a week. We have to have 1 day off from baseball, during the week. you just made me think of something that I would rather have a practice on Sunday and give them a day off during the week where, hey guys, we're not going to be practicing today, but I want everybody in the weight room, give me, 45 minutes of lifting. This is what we're going to do.
And you can make that Sunday a practice.
Yes.
Right into the weight room.
Exactly.
And then you can make Wednesday weight room.
Exactly. I mean,
what have you really cut out? Nothing.
Nothing. No. As a matter of fact, you made it easier for me as a coach because I don't work at the school, and Sunday's a hell of a lot easier for me to be there than it is, during the week.
So just so you know, we have our practices on Sundays. That's where they lift, at the facility.
Yeah. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Two more things that I want to get in. I don't want to hold you too long, but there's a couple things
okay.
I want to get into. You had mentioned about a post-throw routine. What do you suggest because I've heard a lot of different things about, guys who run post-throw, guys who say, no, don't run post-throw. What do you think?
I think you need to have a good post-throw routine. I think, the muscles are getting tight from throwing. You're losing internal rotation. You need to establish a good post-throw routine. We'll do rebounders. We'll do band pull-aparts to open them up again. Just keeping everything a little bit warmer for a longer period of time. And trying to disperse some of that tightness. And not let them go home like that, because you can lose up to 10% of internal rotation after every bullpen. And if we can come back and give them some IR drills and give them some stuff to get that IR that they just tightened up, it can do wonders. Because if not, they're going to go home, and that's going to stay tight, and they're going to lose a little bit every day, and then all of a sudden it starts to compound on itself.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
that's really the purpose of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's great advice. What about hydration? I mean, is that important post-throw? Because I've heard people say that too.
So I was talking to one of my buddies. His name is Zach Descant. He is a strength and conditioning coach. He's the strength and conditioning coach at TCU. He said when the guys get there, what he tells them is he gives them a TCU water bottle, and it's like a half gallon. And he said, during baseball season, this is your girlfriend. He said, take this, fill it up, take it everywhere with you. Take it to class. I don't care if you have to take it to the bathroom. But you need to get, 90 to 100 ounces of water in your body every day when you're playing baseball, especially down there. It's in Texas.
Sure.
But hydration is key. It's not only key for cellular growth. Water changes the body at a cellular level. The mitochondria in your muscles, your ability to burn body fat, your ability to keep your body temperature lower. There's flushing the salt out of your body. It's just really, there's so many things about water. I could do 45 minutes on the importance of water. Just know that you need to hydrate yourself. And this was something, honestly, personally, I was always like a do as I say, not as I do, because I have a hard time drinking water. I'm never thirsty, but I'm carrying it around with me, and I make sure I drink, like, this is 20 ounces. I drink 4 to 5 of these a day, and I'm not even playing sports anymore.
Yeah.
Just, for health.
Yeah.
Hydration is, that goes along with nutrition. Eat enough calories and drink enough water.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like you. I'm the worst. I don't drink a lot of water. I don't know. I just don't do it. But I know the importance of it, but I just don't do it. I don't know why. But so let's talk a little bit about time off. Okay. During the calendar year, is there any time that you believe that pitchers especially should not be throwing?
Okay, so I've written a lot of articles on this. I've conversed with Alan Yeager.
He was on the show, by the way.
Yeah, who's on your show?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on my podcast twice. He's a good buddy, man. He's a great guy.
Alan is fantastic.
The thing I like, the thing I learned from Alan Yeager and Randy Sullivan actually, is, it's okay to throw year round. Um, you know, give yourself at least a 4 week break, but those other 4 weeks after that, just long toss. Just take the arm for a walk. Don't really don't really throw. When you talk about throwing competitively and hard, I don't think that you should throw competitively more than 8 months a year. I
Yes.
think you need to take 4 months a year where maybe you take 3 weeks or 4 weeks, 2, 3 weeks where you shut down completely. Generally, our guys do that in August after summer ball, when they go on vacation,
Yeah.
right before school starts.
Right.
They'll completely take, you know, 2 weeks off and not even pick up a baseball, and that's the best thing they can do. Don't even pick up a baseball.
Yeah.
Our pro guys come in end of October, beginning of November. They don't even want to look at a baseball or a baseball bat.
I'm sure.
They could care less. You need to give not only your body but your mind a break. But it's very important that you continue to throw light, because there's a thing called Davis's law, and what happens is the arm acclimates to the stress that's placed on it. So if you take too much time off, you're going to actually your body's not going to be able to accommodate the residual stress of throwing once you start throwing again. It's going to be kind of shocked.
Yeah.
So just like going out and long tossing, long toss out, don't come back in on the line.
Yeah.
Just long toss out. Take the arm for a walk, 60%, go out for a couple weeks after you take a couple weeks off, and then do it again, in the winter before you start ramping up.
Yeah.
And that's a key thing to do, because we need to take time off, but we really do. When I say time off, I don't mean not throw. Maybe a couple weeks a year not throwing at all, but for the most part, 3 to 4 months a year, light long toss out only.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Alan, because in my program, I use Alan's throwing program. And it
Right.
specifically tells you,
Can't go
how.
wrong there.
Oh, it tells you how to deload. It tells you when you should stop throwing, how to ramp up, and he's fantastic. And
He's a great guy.
yeah, to be able to put that kind of information out there for people to use. I don't understand why every single coach in the country doesn't just take Alan's, throwing program and use it. It's right there for you.
Why doesn't every coach in the country make sure that their kids aren't throwing too much? Or why doesn't every coach in the country make sure that their kids are playing multiple sports or actually getting in the gym and getting strong?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there's some guys that are doing it right, and there's some guys that are just doing it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, is to educate people, to make them understand that yes, there are ways to do this. This is not just hey, I played baseball 20 years ago. Yeah, I can coach. Come on, let's go. I'll teach these kids how to play baseball because I played. No, there's a lot of stuff that you need to know, that you need to study to learn to be the best that you can be, because that makes your players the best they can be. Very simple.
Absolutely.
So, all right, I'm going to ask you one more thing, and then I'm going to let you go. So, what's next? What's next for RPP? Anything exciting? Anything on the horizon?
Well, I'm always excited when I see the young guys starting to play travel ball. I love to take my dog on the weekends on a Saturday and go watch them if they're somewhat close to my house. I love watching these kids. These kids, 13, 14-year-old kids, they become like my kids. I have them till they leave for college. I see them 5 years. It's like going to see them. I know the parents. So I look forward to that. I also look forward to the summer when all the college, a lot of our college program in the summer, for guys who are maybe got enough innings, but they weren't really where they want to be. They need to get a little bit more athletic. They need to throw a little harder. They come in for the 3-month program with us in the summer, and they can even play local ball if they want. So they can get some, like maybe one day a week, they can get some reps in on the mound while they're getting more athletic. I love the summer. The summer training for me, it's I'm not going to lie to you, it's a lot it's a lot of fun training older, really more athletic guys. It's fun to watch. It's fun. They can do more of what you ask them. There's not as much intense coaching as there is really talking to them and getting into their head at that point because they have such a good training age. So I'm looking forward to the summer, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of weeks with travel ball starting to watch the progress of our guys from last year and our new guys.
I mean, that's fantastic. And I know that feeling, what you said about getting excited about your players, because one of the things I learned a long time ago, and everybody on the show hears me say it all the time, but I love every one of my players, and I make sure that they know it.
Yeah, man. Kid, you know what? A kid will perform for you if they know that you care about them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very simple.
100%.
Yeah. So, Nunzio, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate this. Listen, give everybody an idea how they could reach out to you. I mean, I know you're doing online training and you're doing all this stuff. Tell people how they can reach you.
You can reach out to me at Nunzio, Nunzio Signore on Twitter. You can reach out to my facility at RPP_baseball. That's on Twitter and Instagram. You can go on the website. You can scroll on the website. It's a great website to get a lot of information and articles on, and that is rocklandpeakperformance.com. I have a book out on velocity-based training. You can look under my name and VBT. It's released by Human Kinetics. You can get it at Amazon, and Pitcher's Arm Care, and that's anybody has any questions, feel free to email me at Nunzio, Nunzio, at rocklandpeakperformance.com.
That's fantastic. I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been a treat because, again, like I said early on, this is out of our wheelhouse. We usually talk baseball. I mean, we were still talking baseball. We were talking a different part of baseball, we'll say
long-term athletic development.
Yeah, so this is great, and I hope that I shouldn't say I hope, I know our listeners will get a lot out of this, so I can't thank you enough.
Awesome, 100%.
Take care, Nunzio. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Now, if that wasn't a powerful conversation with Nunzio, I don't know what is. Like we said, Nunzio is the owner of Rockland Peak Performance. He is the author of Pitcher's Arm Care and co-director of the Pitching Lab. He's really a true leader in the field of baseball performance and arm care, which we know is important. And this episode was really packed with a lot of gold for coaches, athletes, and yes, even parents. He also dropped a lot of knowledge, a lot of incredible knowledge on long-term development, individualized training, and how technology and data are changing the game. He talked about high-level pitching concepts, the importance of movement screens, strength development, very important. I mean, I learned a lot from what he talked about strength development. Like I said, there was just so much good stuff there. So, listen, I want to send a huge thank you to Nunzio for joining the show and sharing his expertise with all of us. If you're serious about player development, go to rocklandpeakperformance.com and check out Nunzio. So, if you enjoyed today's show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Visit the website at thectbshow.net. Listen to your favorite episodes and please leave us a review. You can also reach out to the show on social media, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and get this, the old man has finally got us on TikTok. Keeps me young. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, please drop us an email at clearingthebases@gmail.com. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content and reach more people in the baseball community just like you. And also, let me know if you'd like to be a guest. Until then, coaches and players, keep practicing, stay positive, and remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.